This is Cody Paul, and when he was a kid, he was known for being one of, if not the best running back in the entire country. So much so that some of his highlight tapes got millions of views, and he actually continued his dominance up through high school and was still a really great player. Unfortunately, there was one glaring problem. Cody was never able to grow past 5'5", and this would result in him losing almost all of his Division I scholarships, not only taking away most of his opportunities, but any chance of him seeing what his true potential could be. So today, we are putting Cody Paul into College Football 25. We're going to see what would have happened if more teams gave him an opportunity, as we'll follow him on his road to glory. Now, coming out of high school, Cody Paul was a 4-star recruit, but he understood that because of his height, a lot of teams were going to look at him sideways. So he was very adamant about going somewhere that really wanted him and would allow him an opportunity to play. And when he went into his recruiting, it was just like he thought. Many big schools were not interested. But there were some really good schools that would not only give him the chance to play, but also the chance to win a championship. He went back and forth between a few schools that he really felt like could help him throughout his career. But when it came to Cody Paul's college decision, he decided to sign with Stanford. And now that Cody Paul is finally with the Stanford Cardinals, this 5'5", 200-pound ball of muscle is ready to show the world what he can do. But he knows that first he has to earn that starting job. So he went into the first practice doing so well that it seems like somebody's getting a little intimidated, because the starting running back starts talking crazy to Cody. But you see, it was all good though, because Cody knew that as soon as he took this dude's starting job, he was going to have to retire from football and be an accountant or something. So Cody was just looking forward to some opportunities to prove that he should be the starter. And he was hoping he would get a lot of them in his first game of the season against TCU. Now, Cody did get some opportunities in his first game. He actually made his debut in the first quarter on a 3rd down and 18 that turned into a 4th down and 18. The other opportunities that Cody got would either end up in an incompletion or, in this case, an interception, one that would put this game out of reach, and the coaches were not happy about it, because as Stanford would go on to lose their first game 7-24. The coach reassured Cody that he was still firmly in the backup spot. So Cody just went back to practice working hard as ever to try to prove his value. And the coaches were impressed enough to tell him that they'll give him some more opportunities going into their next game, because they were about to face off against the weakest team on their schedule, FCS West. They actually had Cody out there on the first possession. He called for the ball in this play and probably didn't work out the way that he thought it would. But it's all good though, because he actually comes out on his next possession and comes up with his first career reception, picking up a 1st down while he's at it. Eventually they give him his first career carry, and not only did he get another 1st down, but he was also proving that he was hard to bring to the ground. Still in the first quarter, Cody was showing that he could probably have a bigger impact than the coaches thought. He was making a lot of nice plays for the Stanford offense that was largely struggling without him on the field. And although he didn't get to play a lot throughout the second half, they did put him in again in the 4th quarter where he picked up a 4-yard gain, as Stanford would go on to eventually win this one 24-7. With Cody Paul managing to have a pretty big impact on the game despite the lack of opportunities. So Cody just kept his head down and stayed grinding, because he knew that if he keeps playing well, then one of these games, these coaches will come to their senses. In his 3rd game of the season against Syracuse, Cody Paul was showing that he could also be a pretty serious receiving threat, because they brought him in during the 2-minute drill to help lead this team down towards the goal line. But the coaches realized maybe they should start running with him more, because they only had 18 rushing yards at halftime. So they brought him in after halftime to potentially provide a spark for this offense. And he was doing a pretty good job. He actually almost got in for his first touchdown of his career on this play, if it wasn't for a bad throw. But Cody helped continue to chew clock for Stanford as they were able to eventually take a knee and leave New York with a 14-6 W. As Cody Paul almost doubled the yards per carry of the starting running back with the exact same amount of carries. He was also doing an excellent job proving his effectiveness in the receiving game. So with all the hard work that Cody had been putting in, he had finally earned an opportunity to be the starter. And like many of the opportunities that Cody Paul had been given throughout his life, this was another one that he would take full advantage of, as he would eventually go on to win this position battle and finally become a Division I college football starter after all these years of being told that he was too short to play at the next level. And it was a great thing that Stanford had made Cody Paul the starter when they did, because their next game would be against the toughest opponent of the season so far, as they were set to face off against Clemson. Cody walked out there for his first play as a starter, and he was already getting used to the feeling of playing at this level. On his second carry of the game, he actually went on to rush for a first down. And it seemed like this was the spark that this offense needed to start moving downfield. He caught a pass to help bring him within the 10-yard line that set up an opportunity for Cody to take this carry and bounce off multiple tacklers before being driven into the end zone for a touchdown, his first one of his college football career. This game would remain relatively stalemated up until the second half, largely because Stanford's offense was consistently stalling out. But when the fourth quarter hit and this game was still tied, Cody Paul knew that he had to make a play. So he took this handoff before getting out to the edge, eventually spinning away from a guy and breaking off multiple tackles, and he is breaking loose down the sideline for a huge gain, coming up with a huge play to get his team in the end zone when they needed it most. But there isn't too much time to celebrate because Clemson went right back down the field and scored a touchdown of their own. And eventually this game would be sent into overtime, where Cody Paul was doing everything he could to help get his team back in the end zone. They put him out there wide receiver, and he somehow caught this ball underneath and just drove his way into the end zone for another touchdown. His third one of the day, and potentially giving his defense an opportunity to close this game out. Unfortunately, they don't, and Clemson scores a touchdown and a field goal. But this was a battle that Cody Paul was doing everything he could to help win. But there was nothing he could do on this third down and goal that got stopped in the backfield. And then on this 2-point conversion in overtime, he should have had his feet down, but unfortunately this didn't count. And Stanford would end up losing this game 27-29. With Cody Paul still winning player of the game with over 150 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. He also had over 100 yards through the air off of 15 receptions, and that performance was more than good enough to earn him player of the week. But you see, now that Cody was a starter, he wanted to win. And he knows he could definitely help this team do that within the schedule that they have coming up. So he was really focused on winning his first game as a starter against Virginia Tech. Cody started out this game hot, showing that he was capable of single-handedly leading his team downfield as he picked up multiple big plays on this drive. And he would eventually cap off the drive with a rush up the middle that would go in for a score, putting up the first points of the game for either team. This Stanford offense, though, wasn't nearly as effective, though, going forward throughout the first half, as they got stopped on multiple third downs and kept stalling out. But when they got the ball back in the second half, it would be Cody Paul who would make the plays to get his team downfield. And because of his lower center of gravity, these Virginia Tech players were losing him in the backfield. And Cody was showing just how hard he was to bring down whenever they caught up to him. But as great as Cody Paul was playing throughout this game, the rest of his offense just couldn't get things clicking. And this game would eventually head into overtime, where after Virginia Tech only managed to score a field goal, all Stanford had to do was just get in the end zone one more time. And this is where Cody Paul would really show up as he got in the end zone for a touchdown, ending this dogfight against an ACC rival as Stanford would go on to win this game 19-16, with Cody Paul going for 114 yards off of 25 carries and 2 touchdowns. And already people had Cody at the top of the Heisman watch over Travis Hunter, but apparently Colorado didn't like that because they had some people affiliated with the school sending out tweets calling Cody Paul a little guy. They were also talking about how Virginia Tech is weak competition. But that's all good to Cody, because he knows he's about to have an opportunity to show everybody what he's really made of, as he's about to face off against one of the best teams in the country, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now see, Cody started this game off really well, doing a great job getting himself around the edges and picking up big first downs. Whether it was in the running game or whenever he went out to pass, he had helped lead his team down the field on this opening drive, and would eventually take this run up the middle for a touchdown to put the first points on the board and set the tone for the rest of the game. Because throughout the second quarter, Cody would not only be a playmaker who could make things happen in open space, but he would also continue to be a workhorse back for the Stanford offense, as he would come up with multiple big runs before eventually forcing his way into the end zone once again, as he takes the lead in a game that he already feels like could be a shootout, because he watches Notre Dame go right back down the field and tie the game back up. And although their defense is playing pretty well against the run now, Cody Paul, being as small as he was, made it easy for him to get open, and he found a way to be a key contributor in the passing game out the backfield, leading his team all the way down towards the goal line before he would eventually take another handoff and dive into the end zone for his third touchdown of the game, applying some pressure to Notre Dame that they would respond well to, or at least their offense did, because their defense comes out and allows Cody Paul to get open on this play, taking the screen pass and wiggling his way all the way downfield for another touchdown in this game, taking the lead for Stanford as they head into the fourth quarter once again. But now in the fourth quarter, things were tied once again, and Cody had to help his team drive back down the field. He was even doing a great job pass protecting on this play to allow his quarterback to deliver this ball. But on this third down and 2, Cody would take this carry and find a bunch of open space, And he thought about going down, but just went into the end zone for another touchdown on the day. But I bet Cody wishes he went down because Notre Dame goes right back down the field and scores a touchdown with under 10 seconds left. Meaning so that when this game goes to overtime, Cody and the Stanford Cardinals actually have an opportunity to just go into the end zone for a touchdown to win the game. And it was already looking good with Cody coming up with a big rush, but then his quarterback comes up with a bigger throw as he gets it into the end zone to end this game for Stanford. And they go on to win it 41-38, with Cody Paul going for 159 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns, winning National Offensive Player of the Week for the effort. Now, unfortunately, although Stanford was winning some big games against some big teams, they were still ranked towards the middle of their conference and were actually completely unranked on the top 25. So Cody knew he had to just keep improving on his skills and working hard, as he had another opportunity to take down another ranked opponent, with Stanford going to face off against SMU. Now, Cody had started this game out as he had done previously, with him making a lot of big plays early on. It seems like one of his specialties was screenplays, because whenever they would get it to him, he seems like he could always make something happen, because he would go on to put this guy in a Nutra-blender before running up and saying, "Hey," and going down at the 28-yard line. Now, for some reason, they actually went on to take Cody Paul out the game after this, but the offense still went down the field and scored a touchdown. But when Cody got back on the field, he started to struggle a little bit to end the half. But that would not stay the case throughout the majority of the second half, as Cody was putting the moves on the guys and breaking off tackles to come up with big plays. With the clock under 2 minutes, Stanford found themselves in the red zone, looking to make it a 2-possession game to put it away. Because with SMU's offense being lackluster, all it took was a Cody Paul rush up the middle to go in for a touchdown to allow Stanford to eventually take a knee and win this game 21-10. With Cody Paul being a large part of the reason, with 160 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. But not to mention he almost had 100 yards as well off of 5 receptions. But after the game, there was actually some girl who had asked Cody to come to a party with her, and he figured he had earned himself a fun time, so he decided he would go. But little did Cody know that when he would show up there would be a bunch of people there making fun of him for his height, saying that they'll never give a Heisman to a vertically challenged person. And Cody Paul had really internalized all that negativity and figured he could use it to fuel him throughout the rest of the season. And he was ready to do even more damage than he had been going into his next game against Wake Forest. Cody began this game running angry. He started off by saying, "Hey, man, get off me," and breaking off another tackle before picking up a first down. He took another carry that allowed him to get around the edge, and it gave him space to race up the sideline all the way upfield inside the red zone for Stanford. This led to a handoff from Cody Paul that allowed him to get around the edge and dive into the end zone for the first touchdown of the game from either team. In the second quarter, the entire Stanford offense was starting to get into the groove of things, because they didn't even need to use Cody that much to move their way downfield. They did use him once again, though, to take a handoff and allow him to run to the sideline for another touchdown on the game, making it a 2-possession game as they head towards the end of the second quarter. But I think Cody Paul is feeling like he still has some work to do, because he makes this catch to bring his team inside the opposing red zone once again. And then a few plays later, he has an easy reception out the backfield for his 3rd touchdown of the game, making it a 3-possession game going into the second half. And this offense was not necessarily slowing down as far as putting up points, because although their initial drive coming out the half would only end in 3, Cody Paul was doing an incredible job making people miss and bringing his team back within scoring position. He had brought him down to the goal line where they allowed him to run it in for his 4th touchdown of the game, and apparently the coaches had saw enough, because they sat Cody throughout the 4th quarter, and Stanford would go on to win this game 34-10. With Cody Paul rushing for 151 yards and having 4 touchdowns, not to mention an extra 92 yards through the air off of 9 receptions. And when asked about who's the credit for this team's success, since Cody is not a really selfish guy, he immediately said his teammates. But really everybody knew that this team wouldn't be good without Cody, and deep down he knew it too, which is why he continued to work hard, especially when Travis Hunter was creeping up on him in the Heisman race. So Cody Paul felt like now that he had a few games under his belt, it was time to start showing people how truly great his potential could be, and prove that even though he was small, he could have the biggest impact out of any player in the entire country. Cody came out with a rushing touchdown against NC State to start the game up. He was really doing it all in this game. He was even out here helping to pass protect so his quarterback can deliver this dime. By the 4th quarter, Cody was running all over this defense. He was running up and saying "hey" to defenders, and had over 160 yards on the ground. They handed the ball up to him once again with 30 seconds left for a touchdown to make it a 3-possession game and essentially put it away. Cody Paul had had another incredible performance, But now Stanford was a top 10 ranked team in the country, so they had some expectations to live up to. But down the stretch during a tough game against Louisville, Cody Paul was the guy to continuously lead his team up and down the field when it mattered most, leading a clock-chewing, timeout-taking drive that brought Stanford all the way down to the goal line. Where on this 3rd and 2, Cody Paul took a handoff and dove into the end zone, barely making it in for a touchdown, but also taking the lead in the final moments as Stanford would go on to win this game 21-14, with Cody Paul once again winning another player of the game. Cody went into another game the following week against California, where out the gate he was making an immediate impact, taking the screen pass and wiggling past the entire defense before eventually almost getting in the end zone for a touchdown. It was all good though, because on the very next play he was able to fight his way in for the game's first score. But Cody Paul was far from done for making big plays in this game. He would go on to take this handoff, and with his right tackle parting the Red Sea, Cody had a wide open lane to run up and say, "Hey," and just like that, Cody Paul was off to the races, breaking free for one of the longest touchdowns of his season so far, and absolutely snatching somebody's ankles in the process. But somehow Cody still wasn't done yet, because they would put him out there at wide receiver, and he would actually get open on his route and give him an opportunity to get in the end zone for a touchdown, already extending the lead to 21 for Stanford before going into halftime. And at this point, the entire world was starting to see just how amazing Cody Paul was. He was basically putting this Stanford Cardinals team on his back, and anytime he had the ball, he had an opportunity to go score. It did not matter how small he was, because he was shifty enough to make people miss and was strong enough to fight through tackles to pick up first downs or touchdowns. And this one would end this game against California as Stanford would go on to win 35-13, with Cody Paul probably having the best game of his career with 241 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, Cody had gotten used to receiving national attention from the media at this point, but he had never expected to see a guy like Christian McCaffrey tweeting about him, saying that he feels like he should win the Heisman over Travis Hunter. And honestly, considering Cody Paul had brought Stanford all the way up to 6 in the top 25 rankings, I think most people would agree. And Travis Hunter actually started to fall off the Heisman race anyway. But that was kind of funny to Cody, because he felt like he was just getting started as Stanford was about to head into the back half of their season, and they wanted to keep this winning streak alive heading into another game against San Jose State. Now, one thing to know about Cody Paul is that he always felt like he had something to prove. Whether you doubted him or believed in him, he always knew that it was going to be his job to get in the end zone for a touchdown. And he started this game off against San Jose doing exactly that. And I believe because of him, he was opening up a lot of opportunities for other players on this offense, because they were surely becoming one of the best offenses in the country, led by a guy who was no taller than your local Latina. But honestly, man, at this point, it did not matter when none of these defenders could catch him. I mean, he was out here saying, "Hey, oh my God. Hey, come here. What the hell, Cody Paul? You are an animal." Rightfully deserved, Cody Paul would cap this drive off with a touchdown, but this was still only the first half. He actually came on the field in the second half to go out for a route and got in for his second receiving touchdown of the game. And at this point, Cody was on pace to have one of the best performances of his entire career so far. But like I said, this entire offense was clicking at this point, and the quarterback would go on to throw up a dime to a receiver for a touchdown, making this game 35-3. But still in the third quarter, Cody Paul felt like he still had some work to do. So he would take this ball out to the edge before snatching this boy's ankle, sending his ass to the hospital, and breaking free for what could be an 87-yard touchdown. And with that touchdown, Cody Paul had more than effectively put this game away, as Stanford would go on to beat the dog shit out of San Jose 42-10, with Cody Paul going for 222 yards on the ground with 5 touchdowns, definitely deserving the National Offensive Player of the Week that he would later on win. But now it's time for Cody Paul and the Stanford Cardinals to get into some big-time games, as they were set to face off in a rematch against a team that beat them earlier in the season, the Clemson Tigers, in the ACC Championship. Now, Cody came out in this game remembering exactly how it felt to lose against the Clemson Tigers early in the season. He remembered how it felt to come out in his first ever start and have a great performance just for it to be spoiled by Clemson. So he was going to do his best to make sure that they couldn't spoil it today, as he gets in for a touchdown on Stanford's opening possession. But he feels like because of how Clemson has been playing all season, that they might not ever stop scoring in this game. So that just means that this Stanford offense can't stop scoring either, and it seems like the rest of the players had gotten the memo, as they were pulling their own weight to pick up big first downs. They would even find their own ways to get in the end zone for touchdowns as the first quarter of this game comes to a close. And this Stanford defense actually comes up huge with putting the offense in great field position on the next drive. All it took was a couple handoffs from Cody Paul where he would eventually be dragged into the end zone for a touchdown, making this a 21-7 game, and you can really tell how big of an impact he's made just by looking at the stickers on his helmet. At halftime of this ACC championship game, they literally had Cody Paul out here trending on Twitter, pretty much saying that he's already locked up this Heisman. But unfortunately, Stanford had not locked up this game yet, with them actually going 3-and-out on their first possession and allowing Clemson to come back in this game and tie it up at 21. And now with this offense all of a sudden struggling pretty badly, things are not looking good for Stanford as they get stopped on another third down and are forced to give the ball away. Luckily though, it didn't seem like Clemson's offense was playing too well throughout the second half, and now with around 2 minutes left, Stanford actually has the opportunity to drive downfield for either a field goal or a touchdown to win the game. It actually came down to a 3rd and goal where Cody took a handoff up the middle and was able to pound his way across the goal line for a touchdown within the final minutes of this game. And after Clemson fails to put up any more points, Stanford would go on to win this game 28-21, with Cody Paul leading the way with 179 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. And now that the Stanford Cardinals are officially ACC champions, this means that it's time to head into the playoffs. But first, it's time for some awards, as although Cody Paul would win another National Offensive Player of the Week, he would go on to win his first Player of the Year award, recognizing how great of a talent he's been all season. But no other award truly encapsulates that as much as the Heisman Trophy, which Cody Paul was this year's recipient of. And with almost 1,800 yards on the ground and 24 touchdowns before they even hit the playoffs, I think it's more than fair to say that he got what he deserved, especially since people from Colorado were now admitting that he deserved to win it. Now, Cody went on to win a bunch of other awards, but the main thing here is that they actually go on to receive a first-round bye for the playoffs. So Cody used that bye week to work hard and earn himself Platinum Shifty, so he can go into the first round of the playoffs ready to make even bigger plays than he had all year, as Stanford was set to face off against Kansas State. And Cody had began this game running on fire once again, picking up a big first down that flipped the field for this Cardinals offense. But now inside the red zone for one of the first times all season, this quarterback actually throws a pick and takes away a scoring opportunity after already being down 7-0. But now all of a sudden Stanford is down 14-0. So Cody is doing his absolute best to get his team back down the field and get them in scoring position. He would take a pass out of the backfield before going on to make multiple men miss and bringing his team inside the red zone. And then they put him out there at receiver and somehow actually gets past this quarterback and gets in the end zone for a touchdown, cutting the lead down a little bit going into the second half, but they're still down by 10. And Cody knows that if they don't start scoring soon, they're going to run out of time in this game. So he takes his handoff to the left side, and all of a sudden, he actually has a lot of open space, finding himself down by the sideline, racing away from everybody, as he is going stride for stride with the safety, but eventually beats him out for another touchdown in this game, officially bringing this to a 3-point game as he tries to lead his team to a comeback. Stanford got the ball back at the end of the third quarter, and they were doing a great job moving downfield with the help of Cody Paul. But once again, it was another game where Cody Paul was opening up opportunities for a lot of other players to make plays. And with Stanford getting themselves down to the goal line, it would take another handoff to Cody Paul where he would fight into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the lead for the first time in this game for Stanford. But this game is still not over yet because the defense still needs to get another stop. And it came down to this 3rd down and 3 where Cody Paul was barely able to get over the line, picking up the first down and allowing Stanford to go on to win this game 21-17, with Cody Paul rushing for 234 yards on the ground with 3 touchdowns, not to mention the extra 6 receptions and almost 50 yards through the air. But Cody Paul knew it was not time to slow down with potentially a couple games left in this season, and he was really hoping that history would repeat itself in another rematch against an ACC rival, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, for one of the first times all season, Cody was not able to get things going on the ground in this game, and the offense started out with a quick 3-and-out to begin the first quarter. And things really did not get better as they went into the second quarter because they were still largely unable to pick up a first down. It wasn't until their 4th possession of the game where Cody Paul would start making some big plays to move the chains. But he was also looking to do more of that after making his catch and seeing a bunch of space at the sideline before eventually diving into the end zone for a touchdown, putting up the first points on the board for his team, as this game is now tied at 7 apiece. And with Notre Dame giving Stanford the ball right back before half, they actually have another opportunity to go down and potentially take the lead. And they were clearly taking advantage of the opportunity here as a receiver gets open and is bringing this ball all the way downfield down to the 1-yard line, where on the very next play, a carry from Cody Paul would bring him into the end zone for a touchdown, taking this lead. And going into halftime, they maintained this lead 14-7 up until this third down where they would get stopped and were able to extend the lead to 17-7. And now in the fourth quarter, with Notre Dame still failing to score points, all Cody Paul would have to do is continue to chew clock for his team. But an even better idea would be to score some more points. And he was doing a great job of getting his team in position for that as he brought them inside the red zone. Then when it came down to this first and goal, all it took was Cody Paul to get in the end zone one more time, allowing Stanford to eventually go on to take a knee and win this game 31-13, and punching Stanford's ticket to the national championship. Now, Cody Paul had won Player of the Week for his performance, but going into the final game of the season, he knew that there was still one more show to put on. So he made sure to get himself completely ready for it, because going into this year's national championship, the Stanford Cardinals were set to face off against UCF. Now, Cody had started off by breaking off multiple tacklers and fighting for extra yards to start this game off. He knew what was at stake going into a game like this, and it seemed like the rest of his teammates did as well. He led them downfield to a third and goal where he would eventually be able to plunge it into the end zone for a touchdown, taking the early 7-0 lead for Stanford in the first quarter of this championship game. But with this Cardinals running game beginning to stall out, there were other players on this team that needed to step up and make some plays. Luckily for now, they were able to. Unfortunately, in a game where the offensive line wasn't really playing so well, it was hard to get anything going when the quarterback was continuously getting sacked, and this time fumbling the ball, giving it away to UCF. So now in the second half, the game was tied at 7, and Cody Paul needed to lead his team down the field for a score. And he knew since the running game wasn't working so well right now, he was going to have to come up with a lot of quick catches out the backfield. And that seemed to be doing the trick as Cody was eventually able to take this catch and get himself in the end zone for a touchdown, taking the lead back for Stanford in this game. And all they need to do is just hold on for one more quarter and they could be champions. So after the Stanford defense comes out on the field and comes up with a huge stop on fourth down, giving the offense back the ball with 2 minutes left, they now have an opportunity to put this game away. As Cody Paul was doing his best to take advantage of it as he goes for a first down but goes out of bounds. So now it would come down to a 3rd down and 10 where Cody Paul would actually lose yards on, meaning that UCF had an opportunity to go down the field and score a touchdown to either tie or win the game, but they don't. And the Stanford Cardinals, led by Cody Paul, were able to win a national championship. Absolutely crazy to think that probably the smallest person in the entire stadium absolutely had the biggest impact on this college football season. Cody Paul would go on to win Player of the Game for his performance, and it's well deserved after leading Stanford to their first national championship since 1940. And now Cody Paul's legacy will forever live far beyond just his Pop Warner days. Somehow Stanford would work their way to become national champions after starting the season out 2-2. But almost everybody knew that it had something to do with the fact that Cody Paul was the nation's leading rusher by almost 500 yards. And although he also had 29 touchdowns on the ground, you can't forget that after the national championship, he had actually found a way to work his way up as the #1 receiver in the country, going for over 1,300 yards off of 122 receptions out the backfield. And after the incredible season, Cody Paul had actually gone on to break multiple Stanford and ACC records. But this was the story of Cody Paul. And if you want to see more Cody Paul, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also comment down below who else you guys want to see next. But be sure to check out some of these other stories before the next one comes out. If you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope all of your college football and NFL teams win this weekend, and other than that, I'm going to catch you guys next time.